Okay, so our next job is to remember what the user selected as their filters, just in case they go away and come back again. It will not survive a page refresh, whatever we do, because that's going to reset everything that we store inside a service. But we can remember them if they go from here to back to here again, then for sure we can, and we should remember what they selected there. So let's go back to VS Code and back to our member service. And the way that we'll achieve this is we'll also store our user params inside here, but we're going to use another kind of signal that's available to us since Angular 17. So it's only going to work from Angular 17 onwards, but we're going to set our user params inside here. And we're going to use a type of signal, but it's called model, we get from Angular Core. And this is a writable signal that is exposed as an input-output pair on the containing directive. And what this gives us effectively is two-way binding to a signal, and this is pretty cool actually. So we'll use a model and we'll give it a type of user params, and we'll give it an initial value of new user params, and we need to access our account service inside here to pass the parameter here. So I'm going to say private account service equals inject account service, and let's create another property inside here for the user, and we'll say list.account service and current user, and get the value of that user, and then we'll pass list.user to our user params. And let's also create a helper method inside here as well so that we can reset them. And we'll just say reset user params, and inside here we will say this.userparams.set. We use the same functionality as any other type of signal, and then we can pass in new user params, and we can say list.user. So that's all we need to do from our service side of things. And let's head over to our member list component. So we'll go to our member list component.ts. And inside here, we've got our user params here. We won't be needing those because we are going to get them from our member service. And because we're not using our user inside here, because again, that's going to take place in the service, we won't need our account service here either. And the ng on init can stay the same. But when it comes to loading the members, then do we even need to pass this as a parameter if we're using it in our service and it's available in our service? Well, no, we don't really. So let's go back to the service, and where we've got the get members, we don't really need to use our user params here because we have access to this property inside the service. So what would be the point of passing them to it? And instead of user params, we can say this dot user params and then use the parenthesis, as this is how we use the value in a signal. So I'm just going to copy this and update all of these different usages of this user params in each one of those. Okay, so now we can go back to our member list component, and we don't need to pass user params to our getMembers method. And when it comes to resetting the filters, let's just use the method we created in the member service. So I'll say list.memberService and reset user params. And then we go ahead and load the members again. That's fine. And for our page changed, then we're going to have to say this.memberService.userParams and parentheses, and we'll need to do this.memberService and user params and page number here as well. And then inside our member list component, we can just update what we're doing inside here. Now, because this is a model type of signal, then we can use an ng model to update this with its two-way binding, just like we can with any other property. So this makes things pretty easy for us because we're using the same functionality effectively. So let's say instead of user params, we need to say member service, user params, and the parentheses, and then min age. And let's just copy this line to make it a bit easier to use. And then we'll update all of the user params inside here to use the new model signal that we've created. And anywhere we've got an ng model, we're just going to update that. And that should be that. And the ng model here is using the pagination current page. Okay, I'll keep that the way it is. And let's go test. So in theory, everything should pretty much stay the same. So I'm just going to refresh the page here. I'll make sure I've still got pagination available and selected. If I set the age to, let's say, 30 and apply the filters, and then I go to a different component and I go back again, then we've retained our filters and our cache, and everything else should be working just as before. But now we're remembering our user parameters inside the service. And if we reset the filters, then we go back to where we were before. Perfect. So this brings us to the end of the pagination, sorting and filtering section. So let's head back to VS Code and we're going to commit and stage our changes into source control. So I'll stage the changes and then we'll give it a commit message of end of section 13. And we'll commit them and we'll sync them up with GitHub and we'll wrap up with a summary.